Gentlemen, it's time for, capturing the promise of Pakistan by Mr. Amir Paracha. He's the chairman and CEO of Unilever Pakistan, and he has everything to do with the business of tea. Can we please have him up on stage? Mr. Amir Paracha. There he is.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and a very good afternoon, and particularly a very warm welcome to all the delegates who have actually flown down from Kenya, Tanzania, I've heard Rwanda, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and I hope Pakistan have been, as always, hospitable enough to really look after you guys. Well, I've just basically gotten to know Javed Jabbar Sahab came and talked about Pakistan, and I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed because it's very difficult to compete and come to his stature. Javed Sahab is really an icon for our country. But I thought I'll pick this subject about the capturing Pakistan subject. Why I want to pick this subject is you must have been hearing about Pakistan. You get to hear on Al Jazeera, on CNN, on BBC, and there's a perception about Pakistan till you don't get down to Pakistan, until you get to travel Pakistan. And I think so, I just thought, why not, to talk about Pakistan from a different lens as well. So what I'll be talking, where do I need to click this way? Talk about the paradox. Yeah. While Pakistan has a lot of potential, but it's a story of a paradox. And what paradox means? Paradox means two sides of the same coin. And I think so that's the story we would like to share, because one is what you get to see what government publishes, all the economic statistics, the current account deficit, the policy rates, the trade deficits, the debt, anything. But there's the other side of the country as well. And I just want to basically show both the sides of the coin, and it's important, given tea is very important for Pakistan, and I think so tea is very important for all the delegates here. As per the latest figures, more than $500 million of tea being imported by Pakistan, Pakistan being the #1 tea importer in the world, accounting for around 10% of the tea consumption in the world. So I think so it's very important to really get the perspective is what exactly the country is, because there's a lot of talk going around, more negative than positive, and I thought why not to actually talk about it. Okay, this is the country, I think so all of you would have known this. Yeah. It has a very rich history. We have Indus civilization. It's a fusion of culture. There are 76 languages spoken in this country. Yeah. There are 15 ethnic groups, and tea is the staple food in this country. It has a very, very diverse landscape. A country which only has 1,400 kilometers of a run, has deserts, has plateaus, has the very high mountain peaks, has the Arabian Sea, so you can imagine in a very short landscape, this country is blessed with every kind of a terrain. On the other side, if you were to look at the economic activity, it's the 4th largest cotton producer in the world. We are the official partners of the World Cup football, and I'm sure you guys know that in the last World Cup, the football being used was all being produced by Forward Sports in Sialkot. Now that's a big honor that goes to this country. A lot of people don't know, and a lot of people don't talk about it, that this country has one of the highest export goods in the world. And I think so this gives me a lot of pride. Pakistan was rated the top destination for tourists in 2021 by TripAdvisor. And I think so we have seen over the last 2 years during COVID time, when there was a lockdown and people weren't able to travel abroad, there's been a rush towards the northern part of the country. And a lot of people who have not really explored our own country have gone there. And everyone was mesmerized. And I think so the best thing which I've just gotten to know two days back, that now there's a direct flight operating from Germany down to Skardu. So if you wish to basically visit Skardu, it's a heaven on earth, you must visit. Now there are direct flights actually operating from Karachi, from Islamabad, and on top of it, from Germany. Now that, again, I want to talk about, very rarely people actually talk about the positive sides of the country. Now, these are three charts, yeah? The first one talks about a very strategic location of our country. You know, on one side, there is India. On the other side, there is China. Then we have Iran and then Afghanistan. This block constitutes 1/3 of the world population. Yeah. And this block now practically controls 40% of the economic power of the world. And you must be aware about the CPEC, which is practically cutting down the transit all the way from 12,000 kilometers to only 1,200 kilometers from Gawada. China has already made a commitment of $60 billion to be invested in Pakistan over a 5-year period, primarily in the road infrastructure and energy. $25 billion have already been invested. If you get a chance to travel the country, you'll get to see the road travel is not anything less than what you get to see in any European world, and it is still growing and getting better by the day. The second part is the growing population. Yeah. Now, as you know, many parts of the world are deaccelerating their population. Germany, population growth rate is -2. While we beat ourselves that our population is being the highest in the world, which is 2.5% in the world, but actually, you know what? That goes in our favor because more the people, more the consumption, and more the business. So I think you guys should be happy, the more the mouths to be fed. Now, today, Pakistan population is around 220 million. It's the 5th most populous in the world. But actually, more than that, what is most striking number? It's not the 220 number. It's the size of the population. Today, 63% of the population of Pakistan is below the year of 25, which we call the millennials. So it's not an aging population. It's a population which is about to get into the labor force. It's a population which is going to increase the economic activity of the country. And I think that's very unique to this country, that the population is a lot more younger, is a lot more futuristic, is about to get into the labor force, is actually the millennials, which are the future of this world. Now, I've talked about the paradox, and I want to show you the three sides of the paradox. One is the economic paradox, which is basically the both sides of the coin. One is the structural paradox, which is, again, the both sides of the coin, and the consumption paradox. Now, the blue side is all the positive side of the paradox. Our manufacturing, which is the large-scale manufacturing, has actually recorded a growth of 9%. It's the ever highest in the last 16 years. Our cement sector is one of the booming cement sectors, is around 20%. And when cement sector booms, this means there's a lot of infrastructural investment going on in the country. So this is one of the proxy of showing whether the economy is doing well or not. And finally, we had a 30% increase in our cash crop. Now, that really means that our agricultural economy, which is the rural part of the economy, has really benefited through the increase in the cash crop, which means a lot more cash in the economy. But on the other side, which is all the documented part of the economy, yes, the country is running into a twin deficit. And when I say a twin deficit, means the current account deficit and the fiscal deficit. Yes, the country has exports, but that too a low value added export, which is 45% more raw cotton than the value added, unlike my friend from Bangladesh sitting here. And I think they have done a fab job in terms of really exporting the value added. And I think this is one of the most thriving export businesses in the world. And countries like Pakistan continue to look at Bangladesh to seek inspiration, how they've really built their export business, while Pakistan, the 4th largest producer of cotton, unfortunately, is not very good in exports when it comes to the garments. And finally, our tax to GDP ratio is miserably low. It's single-digit 9% and declining. Now, that's the biggest worry for us. Our neighboring country, India, tax to GDP ratio is 18%. France tax to GDP ratio is 46%. The problem is, if the tax to GDP ratio continues to be so low, the country continues to struggle. The government continues to be poor, and the citizens continue to be very, very rich. And that's the paradox of this country. There's a big undocumented part of the economy. And we try triangulating that why is it so that the economy is still thriving? Why is it so that the cement sector, the export sector, all these sectors doing well, but on the contrary, the economy of the country is not showing right statistics because there's a big part of the undocumented economy which is maybe 2 or 3 times as big as the documented economy, and therefore the people don't get to see the real side of the country. Now I get to the consumption paradox. There are more than $2 billion worth of mobile phones sold in the last 2 years. This is 40% up since 2019. Now, of course, consumers have money, and therefore they are buying the mobile phones. More than 10% of the cars sold in 2021 were crossovers. Now, crossovers are expensive cars. Yeah, they're around 7 million, 8 million, 9 million, 10 million, 150 million, and you keep counting. And the best part is the waiting time is 12 months. And the third thing is we have increased in our local tourism by 60 million in the last 1 year. And this is 10-time increase in the last 2 years. Now, that's a paradox. Of course, people have money, that they're spending money on the mobile phones, on buying expensive cars, and they are actually engaging into tourist activities. But then there's another side of the paradox. Yes, this country has 31% of the population below poverty line. Poverty line means anyone earning less than $2 a day. And there's 1/3 of the population, they are earning less than $2 a day. In this country, which is very unique, 75% of your income basket is being spent on food, as compared to the global average, which is 40%, and 60% is being available for the disposable income. So you can imagine there's a big chunk of being spent on food. Well, good news for the tea people, because of course there's going to be more tea being sold because that's a big chunk of the pocket going. And finally, there's a program run by the previous government, which is called the ESAS program, and it is meant to actually subsidize and provide rationing to the people who cannot afford to even feed themselves once a day for a meal. And there's 20 million families they've been actually participated in the ESAS program in order to address this part of the paradox. And now come to the third and the final paradox, which is called the employment paradox. Yeah. Now, there's a rising entrepreneurship in this country. In the last 1 year, we have the 4th largest freelancing economy in the world. And you know the economy is getting digital by the day. Number 2, in the last 1 year, $300 million have actually flown into Pakistan through the venture capitalists into the digital economy. And this year is expected to cross $1 billion mark in order to be invested into the digital economy, and I'll get to it. And finally, there are actually 150,000 companies being incorporated at SECP, which is Security Exchange Commission of Pakistan. So you can imagine that more and more companies are wanting to actually organize their outfit in order to do their business more lawfully in this country. But if I were to see the other side of the paradox, we have the second highest out-of-school rate in the world. 50% of the kids do not go to school. And this is very sad for this country. The second part is 8% of our youth are unemployed. And this has actually grown, particularly because of COVID. And finally, 35% are actually being unpaid jobs. Minimum wage, I've already talked about, is only 100 euros per month. Yeah. And 100 euros per month, as per the current exchange rate, is 22,000 rupees, which is nothing. You know, we all live in Pakistan. We know what kind of inflationary pressure we are all witnessing. This is, I think, so we need to address. Now, I'll further build on the buoyancy of the economy. Yeah. And I think so, number one is, I'll get to the automobile industry. There's been 10 new international players who have come to Pakistan in the automobile sector. Now, you all know that when you come to automobile sector, it's a very high capital-intensive industry. I'm being told that this year there's going to be 40 new models going to be launched in the car. The average wait time, I've already said it, 7 to 8 months to get a car. Now, that's one sign of buoyancy in our country. Number two, there's a rising confidence of the large-scale manufacturing. Yeah. There's a 9% increase in the large-scale manufacturing, and I'm going to talk more about in my following slide, that what kind of a confidence the local and the international investors have in Pakistan to continue pumping in money into this country. And finally, these are a few of the results I would like to show. These are public listed companies. These are the reported results. Nestle in quarter one, yeah, which means January to March, has actually recorded a growth of 17%. Colgate Palmolive have recorded a growth of 15%. Friesland Campina, which is the sister concern of Anglo Foods, have recorded a growth of around 20.7. And National Food, one of the big spice companies, local company, has recorded a growth of 24%. Now, gentlemen, if you were to know, these kind of growth numbers, the West can only dream. Their best growth numbers are not more than 2 to 3%. And if they grow by 5%, there's a big celebration that takes place. Yeah. And this is a country where every other company is growing in high teens or upward of 20%. Yeah. And that's what very latest results I'm actually showing, which is the first quarter of 2022. I've talked about the digitization, and I think so this is something which all of us have started to witnessing, and this is taking the cost of doing business low. In Pakistan, out of 220 million people, 87% of the population have the cellular connection. 87% of the population means around 180 to 190 million people have a cellular connection. Number two, 50% of the population are actually on a 3G or a 4G network. And number four, 47% of the population is on a broadband. You'll not get to see this kind of digital maturity in such a developing and emerging market which is known to be a third world country. And when your digitization is so well encompassing in the world, this means that you have the infrastructure to grow. And I'll show in my following slides. Now, everything is growing. You look at YouTube. YouTube has actually recorded a growth of 55%. It's one of the top performing countries for Google in the world when it comes to YouTube. Facebook has a meager 5% growth because it really grew very well in the 2015 and 16s. Insta is growing at 41%, and when I come to TikTok, it went down because government put a regulation on TikTok, and therefore it banned it for a while, and that's why TikTok is not growing. Otherwise, it's one of the highest growing social media platforms in the world. And now these are the mediums our local businessmen can actually use to really market their product at a very cheap rate rather than going to the mass media, which means really putting your commercial on a TV, which is very, very expensive. Today, if you were to put a TVC on a prime time, which means 8 to 9 p.m. slot, for a 30-second ad, it would cost you anywhere between 250,000 rupees to 300,000 rupees. For a one TVC, 30-second spot between 8 to 9 p.m. So of course, it's not very feasible for a lot of companies or for emerging businessmen, but certainly they can actually do posts on their Facebook media pages or on their Insta pages or on any other YouTube channels as well. This is a chart which is very dear to me. This is what we call the digital economy. You know, there's been a lot of talk about the venture capitalist. In the last year, and I've talked about, Pakistan has received around $300 million of investment into the digital economy. And digital economy means all those startups, the kids getting out of the university, they had a great idea, and they wanted to basically build a business, but they didn't have money. So instead of actually joining companies, now they're actually wanted to be self-employed. But of course, they need capital. We are getting capital a lot from Silicon Valley, from California. We are getting a lot of investment coming from Saudi, from China. And there's an increasing interest by the venture capitalists to come and invest in Pakistan. It's very good for our millennials, for our young population, to actually receive the capital from abroad, yeah, and start their business. And these are few businesses who already entered. Yeah. So, you know, there are certain businesses called Bazaar, Retailo, Tajir, Airlift, you know, Jugnu, Daraz. And by the way, they have already raised funds to the tune of $100 million, $200 million because doing great. And a lot of people sitting here can actually now use them to distribute your tea to any part of the world. You do not need your own distribution setup. These are B2B companies which are called business-to-business companies. You just need to get yourself registered, yeah, and they will make your product available anywhere in any part of the world at any time. This is 24/7. Yeah. Now, that's the power of digital economy, that it takes the cost of doing business down. It will make easier for a local businessman to do their job well done. Well, I won't spend much time, but what I'm trying to talk about is the size of the potential is huge. Yeah. We measure usually the potential of the business through per capita consumption. Yeah. And on my extreme right, you'll see I've made comparisons between Indonesia and India. Our per capita consumption in ice cream is only 0.4 liters. Yeah? And Europe, per person, consumes 20 liters ice cream per year. Pakistanis consume only 400 milliliters of ice cream per year. So you can imagine what the potential looks like. And likewise, skincare and cleansing and tea and everything, you can pick it up. Yeah? We have 20 million population, which is about to get into the workforce. 20 million is equivalent to the population of Scandinavian countries, yeah, which is Norwegian countries, actually. So you can imagine there are a lot more people who are going to have cash to be spent on the consumer goods. And finally, our export potential. Over the next 5 years, we're expecting to actually grow 4 times, from a meager $25 billion to around $90 billion. And any government coming, you know, because we are having a big problem on current account deficit, we import more than our exports. And the only way we can actually address it, that we need to actually really increase our exports in order to address our current account deficit, so that our currency also starts to get a lot more powerful. Skip this. This is an interesting snapshot of our economy. Since 2015, the top chart, you see that this is the GDP growth rate. Yeah? It's like a snake going up and down. And at the bottom, I've tried to basically give color codes on 3 metrics, which is democracy, security, and economy. You can see from 2005 to 2011, the security and the economy were red. And no one wanted to come to Pakistan. No one wanted to basically visit Pakistan and invest in Pakistan. But post-2012, the things have started to change. Our best era was 2015 to 2018, where all our metrics were green, be it economy, security, or democracy. Now, if you were to look at the current one, Pakistan happened to be one of the unique countries in the world who has shown a V-shaped recovery, pre and post-COVID. Yeah. Our pre-COVID GDP growth was 5.8. During COVID, the whole world went into a tailspin. So we also basically recorded a negative 1% GDP. But immediately after 2021, we recorded a growth of 5.6, as much as 2019 and 2020. Now, that shows the resilience of the country. It's very rare that any economies in the world shows a V-shaped recovery. Yeah? And that shows the power of the people in this country, the resilience of the people in this country, that they have to take it and to really basically bounce back. Yes, currently our economy is in bit of a soup, and I'm sure that we will basically get out of it soon. There's a bit of a struggle, but I'm quite confident because we had a lot more rockier past. We had to fight democracy, we had to fight security, we had to fight the economy. But I think so we are in a much better space, and I'm very positive about the years to come. I've talked about, this is what you get to see and that's what you get to read. Yeah. In the newspaper, in the CNN, in the BBC, Al Jazeera, or anywhere on the social media channels. Yes, as a country, we are facing current account deficit. Our imports are 2 times our exports. Yeah. And therefore, you must have heard, 2 days back, the government of Pakistan has actually put a ban on the luxury items because they want to, on one side, curtail the imports, and on one side, they want to push the exports in order to basically have the right balance of payment. Otherwise, our currency will continue to be under severe pressure. And as you all know, we have lost around 15% of the value in the last 4 months when it comes to currency. But interestingly, we are practically, I was looking at the top 10 worst performing currencies in the world. We are number 9th. I thought we may be fine in the first 2 or 3, but we're actually number 9th. Number 10th is, by the way, yen of Japan, lost 10%. Last 4 months, we have lost 12%. So I think so we got to look at the facts in order to really basically form a context, because many a time we are actually going by the hearsay that the country is sinking. And if you look at the number, Turkey has lost its currency value in the last 4 months by around 25%, last 1 year, 80%. So yes, the currency has weakened, but if you draw a comparison, not as bad. And I've talked about the key thing, which is our exports. This is the pressing problem. We have not been able to address it. This is one area that the government has struggled in order to lift the export. And this is one area where we always continue to seek inspiration from Bangladesh, the way they have picked up. Today, Bangladesh foreign reserves is 44 billion US dollars. Pakistan foreign reserves, 16 billion US dollars. Our foreign reserves have come down for $5 billion in the last 3 months alone, which is putting a pressure on currency. We got to address our foreign reserves, otherwise we expect some more challenge coming our way. This is a chart, this is an interim report I would like to share. This is classified. I would request, please don't take the photograph of this one because the report has not yet been published, but it's pretty much final. This is a survey which the OICCI, which is Overseas Investors Chamber of Commerce, does it, with 208 overseas companies which are working in Pakistan. This OICCI chamber contribute around 1/3 of the tax to the Pakistan exchequer. So you can imagine the kind of influence OICCI has. So we carry out this investors' confidence survey every month, and I'm part of the overseas chamber. And you'll realize when you get to see the chart. This green line shows the up and downs. This is the COVID period, which you say 2019 and May 20, where the confidence of the global investors fell, that they didn't say that, listen, I want to invest in Pakistan, by 45% to 50%. The latest survey report, which is May 2022, says 17% up or increase in the investment coming to Pakistan by all the overseas companies operating in this country, even in the current times. Because whilst one side, the statistics not looking good, but the other side, the reality is all the sectors are booming. Everyone is basically laughing all the way to the bank. A lot of cash coming in. They are making investments, and I think that's what the business community is representing. And when it comes to overseas, all the capital injection into the country is being approved by the global headquarters. Now, the headquarters can be anywhere, in London, Switzerland, New York, Beijing, anywhere. And these are the headquarters who have said, listen, continue investing into this country because we have seen the returns. This is a bit of a complicated chart, but I would like you to focus on the green bar. Yeah. And I'll show you from April 17, and we have been carrying out survey, 41% of the people said that, listen, we are very optimistic about the country. Yeah. It fell down to 16%, 15%, again during the COVID times. And now you see 45% of the people are saying we are very optimistic about the country. This is the ever highest confidence shown in Pakistan in the last 4 years by the international investors. Yeah. Again, willingness to invest. In 2019, 75% of the OICCI members said that, listen, we would like to invest into this country. Latest survey says 80% they are saying, listen, I want to invest into this country. Yeah. It's higher than any other Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Philippines, Thailand. Yeah. And these are the global companies which are practically present in all the countries. So when they make a comparison and when they have to make choices in which country they would like to make investments, they will always prioritize Pakistan over others. Now, I want to slightly shift gears from economy. Yeah. And I was thinking, what else I need to talk about? One side is the economy, but what's the proof of the pudding? And I need to show the proof of the pudding, why the numbers are good. Yeah. But I think, so let's see, are the companies really benefiting? And here comes the power of branding. And I assume, after Palsa was here, he talked about how he has actually built a brand from scratch from Jodia Bazaar to an icon, to a super powerful brand in this country, and there are many other examples. And I want to touch upon, and I want to basically really, and I see this happening in our country as well. A lot of the local tea traders have now actually launched their own brands, which is very, very encouraging. Yeah. But I need to just slightly more talk about what brand means. Yeah. Brand doesn't mean you pack something in a packaged product. Brand means a lot. Yeah. And I just want to slightly spend some time on branding. Now, this is a picture from 1889. That's where Unilever, or in those days, Lever Brothers started. Yeah. The first two brands were Lifebuoy and Sunlight. Yeah. And these two brands were born out of purpose. There was no commercial reason behind the launch. At that time, there was a plague in London. Every other minute, people were dying. And at that time, the founder said, I want to create a product that can kill the plague. And that's the first time he came up with anti-bac Lifebuoy soap in a packaged product. Today, this brand is 130-year-old, and we continue to do the same thing. When COVID came, we were approached by the government of Pakistan that I've heard that Unilever is the largest soap producer in the country. We have a 50% share in this country. We sell Dove, we sell Lux, we sell this anti-bac. They said what we can do. And by that time, there was no vaccine available. And the only way to actually keep yourself was to keep washing your hand and kill through anti-bac soap. And that's where our purpose came alive. And we went with a campaign where we said, use any soap. Safeguard, Dettol, Lux, Lifebuoy, any soap. It's the first time a company launched an ad which it talked about its competitors. Use any product because your life is more important than my sale and my profit. And that's what branding is all about. From here, Unilever came to Pakistan in 1948, exactly 6 months after our independence. So this company is as old as the country itself. And this company has seen every possible thing. The pandemics, the martial laws, the war on terror, every kind of economic problem. but we continue to invest. We have today 7 factories. We operate practically in every business, from ice cream to a personal care, to a home care, to beverages, to foods, noodles. And we have a dominant #1 market share practically in every category. There's no other business in the country which is as spread. I'm not here to sell my company. I'm here to give you that confidence that when you come to this country, just take a long-term view. And today, Unilever Pakistan is the 18th largest Unilever business in the world out of 180 countries in the world. And last year, Unilever Pakistan contributed in the top 5 growth companies in the Unilever world. We competed against the likes of the UK and the US. And I think so that's the power of branding. And over the last 10 years, this has been the trajectory of growth of this company. We were a 50 billion company in 2011. This year, inshallah, we are looking at closing at 140 billion rupees. It's not about the size that matters. Yeah. It's about how you build the brand to serve the community. But this is just one story. Yeah. There are many good stories. Yeah. And these are the lineup of brands we have available in Pakistan, which we continue to bring. Yeah. And a lot more we're actually going to be bringing. And I've talked about, we are operating in laundry, we are operating in hygiene, soap, skincare, shampoos, food, ice cream. Yeah. And they're very good examples. I'm very proud about these local brands. Yeah. Being a Pakistani, it gives me great sense of pride that, there is a Imtiaz store, which is a typical Kiryana mom and pop store, started from a very small store somewhere in Badrabad. Today, this is giving hell of a time to the likes of Metro, Carrefours, all the international players. Yeah. This is the #1 retail chain in the country, being built by someone who started as a one small Kiryana store, but he branded. Today, if you want to buy the best quality and the lowest quality and the lowest price product, no one can actually compete Imtiaz. Yeah. And that's what their fame is. They have worked out their business model that no one can actually get closer to them. And then there's Shan Foods, yeah. A brand which is being 50% of the brand turnover comes from exports. It's a half 50% dollar denominated business, exporting to 75 countries in the world. They have 40% plus share in the country. Peak Freeze, which is English biscuits. Yeah. I remember this brand, this company used to be, again, company born in 1966 by a local businessman called Khawa Butt. Yeah. I remember in 2000, when I joined Unilever, this was a 5 billion rupee worth of a company. Today, it crossed 75 billion rupees, 15 times more than the size in the last 20 years. Yeah. There's one brand which is super, is worth 25 billion rupees worth of a turnover. That's the power of a brand. National Foods, again, another jewel in the crown of our country. Yeah. It has, again, basically around 40% plus market share. They are the one who basically converted all, well, not the all, because still 80% of the market continues to be loose spices. Only 20% is packaged spices. But both the companies continue to record upwards of 20% growth in the last 10 years. That shows that the way basically packaged goods are actually getting a lot more foothold in this country. And finally, I've talked about, and I think so, Tapal does not need any kind of an introduction. Again, another pride. I've always basically, looked at Tapal and Aftab Saab as my worthy rivals rather than as a competition. Because we look at them as our inspiration, and I think so, salute to them the way they've actually built the brand. So, what branding helps? It develops a long-term equity of the brand. And you look at, be it milk, Nestle is international product, Allpurs is very much local, which is, in JV with Anglo Foods. Then we have Dettol, which is the Reckitt product, but in parallel we have Lifebuoy. We have both Danedar and Yellow Label, and My colleague Farheen, I assume she talked about sustainability yesterday, and I think so we are very proud of these brands which are doing a great service to the community. But what branding does, I think so that's important. Branding gives you the pricing power. When the chips are down, because particularly tea is a commoditized business. Yeah? It's a very agri-led business. I have known this business for 20 years. It's the most unpredictable business. Yeah? I don't know, other than tea, maybe other commodities where the auction happens every other week. And the prices swings up and down, which is very, very concerning. Because of course, in an economy where there's a lot of dollar swing happening, you cannot predict. And I think so that's what brand does, that when you have a brand, you can actually, it gives you the pricing power, you can ride that low tide. So that's number one. Number two is, it does really basically unlock the opportunities. Why it unlocks the opportunities? Because a brand gives the confidence to the consumer that what I'm buying, there's a quality packed in it. What I'm buying is hygienic. What I'm buying is a right product for my kids, for my families. It's not a product which is being played around. So branding is an assurance of quality. And you do not play with quality even if it means loss when you want to build a brand. And finally, it reduces the volatility, which is again, the kind of volatility we have in our economy, because, all of a sudden the government put a ban on 30 items, on 200 items. I was reviewing the list yesterday. 30 of our items are impacted, of our own. 15 of them are ice cream. Yeah? Now I'm scratching my head how I'm going to be basically producing ice cream. And many of it is chocolate and many other products. There's a lot of volatility. I cannot predict. And I cannot predict. 2 weeks back, the price of $1 is 190. Today, it's trading at 202 interbank. Open could be to a 5. The only way to fight the volatility is to go into branding. But again, what I've said is, branding is not about selling in a pack. You need to get your positioning right. And today, the youngsters buy a brand, not which looks very jazzy or which looks very modern. They want to buy a brand which is responsible, which is trying to serve the community. I want to share a few ads, around 4 or 5. These are some of my favorite ads. Couple of them are from Pakistan and couple of them from India, from our HUL, which is our sister concern, and one from another. Look the way they're building the brand to address one of the social problems in the community, because it's not only about consuming the product, because brand has a personality the way I and you have a personality. People buy personalities. And I would like to show what the image they have built through this commercial and why people are in love and wanted to buy them at any price, because they love the brand, because the brand is doing some community purpose. Ali, can I? Thank you. Just run one by one.
आ गया बराबर वाला उमर हॉस्पिटल से। देखो, मैं कह रहा हूँ महीने भर तक उसके घर से दूर रहेंगे, गेट के पास भी नहीं जाएंगे और सारी खिड़कियां बंद कर देते हैं। ये तीसरा कप किसके लिए?
उमर के लिए।
क्या?
उसे अकेले रहने के लिए कहा है, अकेला छोड़ने के लिए नहीं।
So guys, this is the ad we made during the COVID times. We were trying to stay from each other.
अपनापन दिखा सकते हैं।
And we said the only way to actually look after your people you love is not to distance, but to really look after them. This is an ad from Red Label India. It's an ad on transgender.
ये किन्नर भी ना परेशान करने आ जाते हैं।
अरे नहीं माँ जी, कुछ लेने नहीं देने आई हूँ। बगल में मेरी चाय की दुकान है और बारिश में सब अटके हुए थे तो सोची सबको एक एक कप चाय पिला दूँ। लीजिए लीजिए ना।
लाओ।
आप भी लीजिए।
We all know
आती
we
हो,
stay
हाँ?
away from transgender people. We do not want to basically talk to them. We do not want to get closer to them. You know, when they come,
अरे
we roll up
सुनो।
our windows.
हाँ?
And they
जरा
are
इधर आओ।
human and they need to be respected.
अरे नहीं माँ जी, आज पैसे नहीं लूंगी।
पैसे कौन दे रहा है? सदा सुखी रहो।
ब्रुक बॉन्ड रेड लेबल, स्वाद अपनेपन का।
ये सिर्फ हमारी नहीं, देश की करोड़ों लड़कियों की कहानी है।
मैं है किस रेडी। चलो भी चलो, जल्दी करो। है की दीदी, साड़ी पहनाने की बात हुई थी ना, फिर वजन दिखाई दे रहा है।
अब इसमें भी दिखाई दे रहा है।
हूँ तुसी जल्दी करो, लड़के वाले आ गए ने।
इससे ढको बेटा, जल्दी आ जा। मैं
Dove is all about unstereotyped beauty. Dove says beauty comes in any shape, color, and size.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम।
आजा नूर, आजा।
फोटो में तो रंग साफ लग रहा था ना?
बेटा आप दोनों चाहो तो बाहर चाय पी लो। जा नूर।
सीढ़ी लगाकर बात करना पड़ेगा आपकी राजेश्वरी को हमारे लड़के से।
नो बट जोक्स अपार्ट, अपने बाल स्ट्रेट करा लेना, भाई को नूडल्स नहीं पसंद।
ये दाग
कब तक चलेगी खूबसूरती की ये बदसूरत परख? आखिर कितनी खूबसूरती काफी है? डव, खामियां नहीं, खूबियां देखिए।
This is the ad we ran on a
अम्मी
Mother's Day. It's about domestic
मुझे
violence.
कुछ ऐसा सिखा दे,
This is a lifebuoy
जल्दी से
shampoo ad.
डॉक्टर बना दे। आपके हाथ पे पट्टी पहनाऊंगी, आपके गाल पे दवा लगाऊंगी। अम्मी जल्दी से एक टीचर बना दे। अब्बू को समझाऊंगी, डायरी में लिख के उनके अम्मी अब्बू को बुलाऊंगी। जल्दी से पायलट बना दे। आपको प्लेन में बिठाऊंगी, अब्बू से दूर उड़ा ले जाऊंगी।
अब राइट वाला लो,
हाँ
अब लेफ्ट वाला।
अम्मी जल्दी से मजबूत बना दे, फिर मैं आपको बचाऊंगी, आपके और अब्बू के बीच खड़ी हो जाऊंगी।
हर बेटी यही कहती है कि अम्मी आप खामोशी से क्यों सहती हैं? घरेलू तशद्दुद के खिलाफ आवाज़ उठाएं, खुद भी मजबूत बने और अपनी बेटी को पढ़ाएं, उसे भी मजबूत बनाएं। घरेलू तशद्दुद के खिलाफ मदद हासिल करने के लिए 1099 पे राब्ता करें। लाइफबॉय शैम्पू और मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ ह्यूमन राइट्स साथ मिलकर पाकिस्तान की बेटियों को मजबूत बनाने का अहद कर रहे हैं।
Last one. Thank you. It's a beautiful ad. Looks like a tea ad, but it's not.
ये आपका।
नीना जी, इतना सब कुछ करने की क्या जरूरत थी?
अरे आप अपनी बेटी हमें दे रहे हैं।
वाओ, सो ब्यूटीफुल ना। थैंक्स सेठ।
चाय ठंडी हो रही है। प्लीज।
हीरा देने वालों का दिल भी हीरे जैसा होता है। नजराना।
All right, guys, this is my last slide. I think so I'm the one between you and your lunch. This is the last slide here. And I talk about branding, and I'm sure there's no better way to understand what branding is all about. It's about creating a personality. It's about addressing a societal problem. It's about being responsible. It's not about packing something in a tea and selling it. It's about giving a personality to the brand. We are today living in a society where there are a lot of societal problems. And at Unilever, our tagline for marketing is get on the front line and raise your voice for any societal issues in the country through your brands. And I think so we believe in only responsible branding. We believe that the way we are going to build the organization is going to be the most soulful company of Pakistan, rather the largest, the biggest, the oldest, the fastest. This doesn't excite us anymore. What excites us, the most soulful company of the country. Thank you, gentlemen and ladies, and I hope you have next to sing. Thank you.
What an absorbing presentation that was, ladies and gentlemen. Really paints a picture, a powerful snapshot. And I must say it was a bit like a lesson in history, a lesson in economics, even ethics and human psychology, the science of decision making. And a perfect follow-up to Farheen's presentation yesterday. You could hear a pin drop while he was speaking, and it was most absorbing. Thank you very much, sir. We'll move on to our next